The Elder Scrolls Online's latest expansion, Gold Road, has just been revealed, along with all sorts of exciting information about the new zone, story, and major gameplay system known as Scribing. A few content creators and game journalists got the opportunity to attend a Global Reveal digital pre-brief event a couple of days ago. At this event, we were treated to a presentation that touched on all of the key points that were going to be brought up at the Global Reveal event about the upcoming chapter and year of content. And we also had the opportunity to ask the developers some questions about ESO whose answers weren't necessarily going to be in the Global Reveal stream that you all watched. In the first part of this video, I'll briefly discuss some of the significant details that were shared with us about what exactly we can expect from this year's ESO chapter. For a more detailed overview of everything that went down at the Global Reveal, stay tuned for my upcoming developer recap video with footage from the stream. The second portion of this video will consist of some of the juiciest questions and answers from that pre-brief event. So if you're here because you already watched the reveal event or my recap video, you can always use the timestamps to skip to the second portion of the video. Alright, there's a lot to talk about. Let's get this show on the road. The Gold Road. I'll see myself out. This year's chapter will take place in the new zone West Weald, a location situated around the Cyrodiil, Gold Coast, Reaper's March, and Craiglorn zones on the map. The main hub city will be, surprise surprise, Skingrad. Those who have played Oblivion will undoubtedly recognize this location. As per usual, this chapter will contain all the kinds of things that you've come to expect from ESO chapters. New quests, delves, world bosses, public dungeons, world events, a 12-person trial, but companions will not come with the Gold Road chapter. Instead, we'll have the chance to get new companions in Q4 later this year. The zone itself will consist of 3 major biomes: the Gold Road, the Valenwood Annexation, and the Colovian Highlands. The main story from last year's content ended on a major cliffhanger, so naturally Gold Road will pick up where things were left off. I won't spoil the major cliffhanger in this video, but I will in my recap video if you'd like to learn more about this year's main story, because it is a continuation of last year's major reveal. And then I'll also have some juicy stream B-roll footage to accompany that segment of the video. The devs did assure us that it won't be necessary to have done the Necrom story to appreciate the story in Gold Road. New players will be able to jump right into the action. But they did inform us that there will be a series of capper quests that will only become available once you've completed both the Necrom and the Gold Road main stories. The new gameplay system is called Scribing, and it's a precursor to what will essentially become spellcrafting 1,000 years in the future of the Elder Scrolls universe. The devs stated that an important distinction to make is that the Scribing system is not spellcrafting, so as to set the right expectations. One of the major goals of this new system is to allow players more avenues for build customization, both visually through the appearances of their skills and functionally through the effects of the skills themselves. So what is Scribing? This new game system that is unique to Gold Road will allow players to essentially collect and customize skills to be able to tailor their builds in a manner that allows them to play the way they want. This is accomplished by collecting and customizing unique skills by editing their primary, secondary, and tertiary effects. Each of the weapon and world skill lines will have at least one unique unlockable skill that will be able to be customized more to your liking at launch. These skill lines in particular are the ones that will receive additional customizable skills because the developers wanted everyone to be able to participate in this new system, which wouldn't have been the case if they added the new system to specific classes first. Rich Lambert stated that they would then, quote-unquote, go from there, which may suggest that the different class skill lines may also receive scribing options in the future. The closest thing to scribing that already exists in ESO might be something like enchanting, where the player can use different rune types to enchant their weapon to do different things, but scribing will have loads more customization options. There will be 3 major resources in scribing. A grimoire is the components of the ability that will never change, and essentially dictates how everything plays out. Grimoires will be unique abilities, but think of them the way you might think of a blank canvas. It does something, it will have a use, but you won't want to have it just by itself. You'll want to add color and life into it, in this case by adding scripts to it. Each grimoire has 3 script slots on it. These slots present the player with the ability to change the different characteristics of the ability, like giving the ability a certain kind of damage type, or buff, or a heal. Inks are going to be a consumable reagent that will be used to change or scribe an ability. Rich Lambert assured us that inks won't be too difficult to acquire. The goal was to make it so that there was a bit of friction when it came to acquiring them, but that they won't be as tricky to acquire as, say, housing materials, which are very expensive, and likewise not super accessible to some players. Players will also be able to alter the appearance of their abilities' visual effects. The example that the devs gave us was that players will be able to change the color of Wall of Elements if they wanted to. There will be 22 styles that will debut during the launch of Gold Road that players will be able to earn and unlock from playing the game. Music to my fucking ears, man. Let's hope these styles stay that way and won't end up becoming a part of the Crown store in the future. As you play, you'll be able to unlock more styles and further customize your character's abilities. At the pre-brief event, Rich Lambert mentioned that styling gives the devs the ability to go further than just colors, but also consider looking into things like pet skins or changing a fireball into a flaming skull sometime in the future. The devs mentioned that styling will only apply to scribed things initially, as they'll have to rebuild abilities into this new system. The Gold Road pre-brief presentation ended with some key dates and an overview of the 2024 roadmap, which consisted of 2 new dungeons in Q1, the Gold Road chapter in Q2, some supposedly wild housing features in Q3, and a new PvP feature as well as 2 new companions in Q4. The second portion of this pre-brief event consisted of a pretty insightful question and answer segment between the attendees and Gina and Rich. There were a lot of questions asking for clarifications about how exactly the new scribing system works, whose answers I've integrated into my explanation of this system, so I won't touch on that topic. But I will share with you all some of the questions and answers that pertain to the future of ESO. Someone asked about combat overhauls. They noticed that they had slowed down quite a bit this year, which they personally enjoyed, and they were wondering if the devs plan to keep things that way or if we, the players, can expect more changes in the future. Rich answered by mentioning that the team had spent a long time trying to get things in a good state balance-wise, and that a lot of the hybridization work has been finished, save for the fact that they haven't had a chance to rework potions and food yet. Other than that, they plan to continue to work on more quality of life things and not really major revamps. A popular question that was brought up was about the possibility of a story mode for dungeons, if that was ever going to be a thing. Rich answered by acknowledging the fact that the team sees this question a lot, but ultimately it all comes down to time. He shared that at the moment there are 3 balance points for balancing dungeons, and a story mode would add a 4th. He assured us that a dungeon story mode is on a list, but whether or not the team gets to it, he doesn't know, as there are other things to work on. Staying on the topic of dungeons, someone asked if there are any plans to expand upon the Infinite Archive content that was released in the 4th quarter of 2023 by adding new content or achievements. The answer was yeah, and that only 7 out of a possible 21 Infinite Archive class sets were created, so it's a safe bet to assume that this will continue to be updated. Another commonly asked question among the veteran community members that was brought up pertained to the overall difficulty and puzzles in the Overland. People have been wondering if there are any plans to increase the difficulty of this Overland content. Rich responded by mentioning that balance and difficulty are very subjective notions. Some people, like Rich, are not fond of puzzles and want to look up the answer to a puzzle in a game upon immediately being confronted by one. Some people enjoy the challenge, and some people hate it. He stated that stuff has to be balanced towards the lowest common denominator. Sure, once you understand the game, it gets easy, but the people that are just coming into the game get nuked on. Okay, he didn't say nuked on. I think he said rolled or something like that. Rich elaborated by saying that they don't want to have the same issues that they had at launch, where people were getting absolutely rolled and smoked by quest and delve bosses. The devs aim to strike that balance by making critical path story stuff easy so that everyone can do it, and then if players want to challenge themselves, they have the option of trying public dungeons, world bosses, and difficult group content, like vet dungeons and trials. Another common vet player question had to do with item sets. There are loads of item sets, hundreds of them, so people have been wondering if the devs plan to continue to introduce more item sets, or if they're going to look at other itemization options. Rich mentioned that this gets talked about a lot internally, and that it's harder to come up with super cool item sets when there are already so many out there. So yeah, this notion is being looked at, but it can be tricky because it's one of those things where if things are changed, a lot of people get upset, but if things are kept the way they are, people get upset too. Someone asked about the overall guild system and if there are ever going to be any plans to expand upon it or give people more reasons to be in guilds. Rich stated that guilds are without a doubt the game's lifeblood. They play a big role in forming a community and encouraging players to log back in frequently to play with their friends and guildmates. The devs hear the people and would love to do more with guilds, such as give guild leaders more tools. This has been on the backlog for a long time because they know how much players want this, they just have to find the time to do it. Rich shared that one of the first 3 questions that he always gets anytime he does an interview is, hey, you know crossplay is a thing, right? Sure enough, He was asked about it at the pre-brief event as well. Rich mentioned that the developers are looking into the possibility of crossplay to see what is and isn't possible, but that there are a lot of factors to consider, such as the fact that entire economies and communities are already well established across all of the servers, among other issues. But he said that one day crossplay may be an option. He noted that his answer to this question has changed over the years, but crossplay is definitely not something that will happen anytime soon. Rich was then asked if he could give us any hints on the housing and PvP updates. His original answer was just, nah.
No, I don't think I will.
But after a laugh, he caved in and said that while he wants housing mains to squirm a little and isn't willing to divulge any information about the new housing changes, he did offer a tiny crumb, a morsel, some might say, about the PvP update. That it isn't Cyrodiil related. IC rework, maybe? I've read some pretty interesting proposals spearheaded by veteran players like React Faster about how IC can be revamped. It'd be pretty neat if something like that was on the horizon. Someone asked about what the focus for ESO is moving into year 10 and beyond, and how it will be different from the past 9 years. Rich said that the first 9 years of ESO were about figuring out the identity of the game and what it is that people want. ESO is a much different game than it was in 2014, and a lot of that is because the devs have been listening to the community to see what people want. Now that they have a better idea of what that is, the devs' focus is on technology, accessibility, and continuing to build content for players to immerse themselves in the world. To wrap things up, the final significant question had to do with ESO's 10-year anniversary and whether there was anything that the devs wanted to talk about or anything to look forward to or expect. Rich mentioned that this is a huge moment for ESO, and that both console and PC will be celebrating their 10-year anniversaries over the course of 15 months or so. In that time frame, there will be a lot of celebration events happening IRL in Europe, and then eventually North America later in 2025. There are also some plans to celebrate this monumental dub in-game as well, but more details on all of the anniversary celebration plans will come out soon. That about concludes this video about the pre-brief event and the little dev Q&A that I was fortunate enough to attend. How are you all feeling about everything that you've seen? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, and I plan to compile a few of the ones that get a lot of engagement in my upcoming recap video, as I like to showcase prominent community reactions in those. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching, thank you to my YouTube members for the additional support, and I'll see ya in the next video. Cheers!